So hello again, everyone, and welcome to the next in our series of lockdown webcasts that we're bringing you every day to keep you all connected whilst we are still working from home during the COVID pandemic. Now, I'm delighted today to be joined by the heads of two associations who've recently conducted some research among consumers. So as things start to ease very, very gradually, we're just getting a bit of a barometer on how consumers are feeling with regards to travel. So first of all, I'm delighted to welcome Richard Singer, who is the Chief Executive of icelolly.com. So hello, Richard.
Hello, Lucy.
And also delighted to welcome Sheena Whittle, who is the Head of the Personal Travel Advisors at Mid-Counties. So hello, Sheena.
Hi, Luce.
All right, now thank you very much for joining me. Let's start with you. I mean, this is research that we've covered on Travel Weekly's website, but obviously it'd be great to go into a bit more detail. Start with you, Richard. You're saying that actually prospects for 2021 are actually looking fairly encouraging. So just take us through your research.
Yeah, so we've been. This is. I guess it's not research as such. It's looking at the natural demand that's coming through the icelolly platform. It's our holiday comparison. So you've got, just now we've got 8 of the key tour operators and OTAs on there. Your TUIs, Jet2, Love, On the Beach, EasyJet Holidays, etc. And reality is what we're doing is we're just seeing where demand is flowing, what they're searching for, what durations, where are they searching, and how is that trend happening. I guess, to be really very, very frank and honest, probably a few weeks ago, we felt that it was starting to pick up, I guess, after the Boris Sunday night, public announcement. It really felt quite a low point in terms of quarantines being talked about. But we've gradually seen a kind of build up of search demand. I mean, it's still off a low base. I mean, 500,000 visitors, over a month period less than where we were last year. But we really started doing these sort of Sunday emails to drive demand. We also look at our digital channels. So that would be our direct, our organic channels, and also the paid search activity that we're still doing at a low level. So we've got quite a good barometer really in terms of what's happening both in our marketplace and in Google marketplaces and Facebook as well. We started doing this weekly report for our partners, which really showed, where people are searching, what they're doing, what they're booking. And we decided obviously to share that to a wider audience, through Travel Weekly last week. And we're happy to share that on an ongoing basis. But, the real positivity was that, last week, despite it being glorious weather and a bank holiday, which is normally the worst period, in any normal times for bookings to happen, we saw, 25% more searches happening last week. We also saw double the amount of bookings, and they're not insignificant numbers. These aren't, they're in the tens of thousands of holiday searches that are coming through and generating really good bookings. And what's quite interesting is that you're able to see what the news does and what people see versus the demand that's happening. So after the Boris announcement, when it felt probably at our lowest point of whether a summer would actually happen, and Matt Hancock and the Transport Secretary saying don't bother with your summer holidays, all of a sudden there's a lot of talk about air bridges, corridors, Spain opening up in July, Greece being heavily profiled on BBC News, and obviously the Algarve and Portugal in talks. As you instantly see that demand curve change. So we saw over the last few weeks, 2020 searches not disappear, but become so low, and everybody was searching out into June 2021, August 2021, September. But actually last week we saw this real spike in September and October 2020 searches, and Algarve is moving up to number 4th most searched destination. Greece has moved right up there. It's still your traditional places that people are looking for. Your Spain's are still the most booked. But it's such a long tail now of destinations that people are looking for. Spain, the Costas and everything in the islands. Tenerife is still our number 1 top seller, but it's closely followed by Algarve, Amsterdam, Turkey regions, Dalaman, Bodrum, and then the whole long tail of Budapest, Corfu, Greece, and Croatia's in there as well now. And we've even got Dominican Republic, creeping up into the top destinations, because they've been less in the news, so to speak. So it's actually quite fascinating just how much search demand is triggered by the news. You know, I think you saw in national newspapers, everyone's saying there's not going to be a quarantine in France, so everybody's going to be grabbing their tents like what we've got in our back garden and hopping on the ferry, and then all of a sudden that disappears. But I guess the overarching message is last week was a terrific week, still way down on where we'd expect it to be, but it certainly felt, especially because of all the channels working. It wasn't just one big email we did that drove it. It's all of the channels are now starting to show that recovery. And, you know, just checking Google Analytics today from yesterday and the day before, that's up again on last week. And, you know, it's 27 degrees outside, you know, just now. So I'm ever the optimist. You look at the news, but it feels like it's getting there. But there's still a huge gap in terms of getting back to where we were.
Yeah, definitely a long way to go. But thank you for that, Richard. That's really interesting. Sheena, let's bring you in, because you have done a survey amongst your members, customers. Are you seeing something similar to Richard? I mean, are you seeing that there's been a bit of a spike, perhaps in demand, but based on the news and these slightly more positive stories coming out?
Yeah, I think it's been really interesting, because our survey was probably done slightly before Richard's, in that ours is probably 3-4 weeks old now, and before the mention of quarantine. But then we've since, some of our PTAs, our personal travel agents, have done some surveys online with their social following that have still reflected what it said since the quarantine message. So, but what we wanted to achieve from it was really just to get an understanding of what customers wanted to see and how they, you know, what, you know, we started to see an appetite in bookings that was coming through. But in order to support them with their marketing, we obviously just wanted to understand that at a deeper level. So the survey results were, you know, really quite, you know, really helpful for us in how we supported our PTAs.
Yeah.
You know, there was definitely the largest chunk of customers who wanted to go away sooner rather than later. And we were sort of saying, you know, get me on a plane straight away. And they were like, yes, we'd like to do that. So that was 39%. And that was then followed by the next largest chunk, which was saying, no, we're going to leave it to 2021. And what we're seeing is actually there's both there, in that not in the bookings for what obviously wanting to get away. All of our bookings that we're doing are 2021 at the moment, but there is still a lot of you know, our personal travel agents, customers out there that are saying to them, you know, we do want to go away at the point that we can, at the point that we understand that it's safe to do so. So I think if that can be achieved, and you know, it's looking increasingly positive, isn't it, with destinations opening up, talk of air bridges, and which would help mitigate, I suppose, the fear over 2 weeks quarantine. You know, we've got those customers that are there that, you know, do seem to have an appetite to still go away this year, which is really encouraging.
And will you, I mean, I was talking to another agent yesterday who said they did 80 bookings last week, which is fantastic given where we were a couple of weeks ago. But she said only 3 of them were for 2020, and only 15 were up until the end of March 2021. So actually the majority were all from Easter onwards next year, which I think, you know, you could understand that. But certainly, as you say, the latest developments, you know, will you be encouraging your agents now to go out with campaigns for, you know, the tail end of this summer? I mean, Richard's saying he's seeing September and October, you know, interest. Do you think you'll be doing that? Will it give you enough confidence to actually do that?
Yeah, I think it's probably, we probably need to leave it another week to 10 days. And this is so fast moving, isn't it? And, you know, some of our agents, so one in particular who has a huge following on social media of 40,000 followers, did a post and actually asked her followers, this was 3 days ago, what they wanted to see offers wise. And 40% said July, August, September they would like to see offers wise. So I think the appetite is there, but of course we've got to be sure that it can be done safely and, you know, in the right way that cares for our customers, and, you know, that with the sort of service that you'd expect from a personal travel agent. So I think it's evolving so quickly, isn't it? 10 days ago, 2 weeks ago, we probably didn't feel as positive as we do today, and that's almost despite the quarantine message. We can see places opening up, so it is, so I think we'll stay close to it over the next few days, and but it looks likely, as long as we can tick all the boxes, that means that it's safe and the right thing to do.
Yeah, and also in your survey, Sheena, you said that 66% of respondents said that it was a beach holiday that they would go for first. And of course, that's a lot of what you advertise on your site, Richard. Is it mainly beach? I mean, you mentioned Amsterdam there, so I guess is city breaks also important? What type of holiday is looking popular in terms of your searches?
Yeah, I mean, it's I mean, duration-wise is probably an interesting one in accommodation. I mean, all inclusive still seems to be the most popular form, and that could be because people have seen the images of, what it looks like, with Spanish bars and Italian, restaurants with these big screens. I'd rather be in a hotel where I know that there's probably good governance around the guidelines for things like that. So all inclusive is definitely that. But I guess as a company like us, it's we're trying to think about what will holidays look like going forward, and I think things like villa accommodation, more self-contained accommodation, will still become more and more popular. So we're now working to try and get more of that content on our site. But I think the one thing that's really happened in terms of searches, the top duration in terms of searches is 7-day holidays just now, which generally for us it's probably 10 days on average is the norm. So you're seeing 50% of holidays being booked now, which is 7 days, and that could be the fact that people are almost putting in this kind of quarantine period that they're, if they're working from home, they can work from anywhere. I'm happy to do 7 days, but if schools are going back, at the beginning of September, then obviously holidays need to be taken at the beginning of August to allow them for that 2-week period. So I think a lot of people are thinking around this way, or it could simply be, a financial element. People are feeling quite anxious, even if you're in a job, it's, there's challenges there because most people have had to take some sort of cut, or people are on furlough, or people are having to think, how secure are things in the future. So people want to get away, but there's all of this kind of thing. And I think probably the financial impact is one of the big things that we'll have to deal with next year. I think the recovery, as these things happen, will probably be quicker than we probably anticipate. But I certainly think the financial element is coming into play. But the other thing that we're working on is as a whole new UK breaks part of our business, because you have to hope that the Spanish will let the Brits come to their beaches, but we've not exactly done a great job of containing this virus. And
no, well, the Greeks have now said that the Brits, although they're open, they're not keen to have the Brits up whilst our rate is still so high. So you're right, that could happen.
Exactly, and I think you'll find EU neighbouring countries. If you're a German, then you can quite easily drive to the south of France or go to Spain, in your well-designed German car. Yet for us, we have to hop on a ferry, get on a car, and drive everywhere. Go through airports. So I think you'll always find this demand there. I mean, you only have to go for a walk somewhere nearby to see that actually people are doing less social distancing than what people would care to imagine. I mean, we've been really cautious as a family, but we went down to a quieter beach on the south coast, and it was absolutely packed, and so we just turned away. There's all of those people who wouldn't think twice about going on holiday as and when they can. But I think equally there's going to be a nervousness because people were always risk averse, and unless they feel safe booking that holiday and going through airports, then again there'll be another group or another kind of cohort of people who will wait until Dave and Margaret down the road have done their Spanish holiday to find out what's it like.
Yeah.
And the travel agents need to play a big part in that. People are looking for advice. Online companies have to give that advice. But we're also seeing tourism boards now start to become more active again in terms of the spend. They want to be top of the list in terms of when people do go on holiday, come to Portugal, don't go to Spain, come to Spain, don't go to Greece. And so generally that competitiveness builds an economy of money coming through, all of our tills, which allows us to do activity that potentially we wouldn't have thought about 3 or 4 weeks ago.
Yeah. Now, Richard mentions the UK there, Sheena, and I know your survey found that 15% of your respondents were interested in a domestic break. So I know you've sold those before, but is that something you'll put more emphasis on, a bit like Richard saying he's trying to build up that content on his site?
Yeah, I think it's clearly going to be really important in the immediate sort of as the restrictions are lifted, and I think, but it's the one thing that we can't get away from in this country, although you could argue it with the last few weeks, is the weather, isn't it? It is not guaranteed, and I think if you think about that feeling as those customers that come back from their week or 2 weeks in the Med where they've got that beautiful suntan and everybody says, oh, where have you been? And, a lot of the time you just can't get that from your UK holiday. And I think, UK did score well in our survey, but then equally on pretty much slightly ahead of it even was villa holidays and also touring and adventure.
Yeah.
So whilst 66% did indeed say they're craving their beach holiday, you've got these other areas which traditionally would, actually we wouldn't have expected to be quite so high. What we've done with that, because we've had this, information for a few weeks now, we've actually taken that and then tested it out in, with our PTAs. We've taken sort of hand-picked offers and popped those out there for our personal travel agents to share, and we've had some really strong results with these. So we've taken, for example, a Santorini offer because Greece has been well mentioned in the news, and that's flown. And then the other trend that's coming through on the adventure and the touring is this need to do bucket list and this inspirational type of holiday. If I'm going to wait till 2021, I want to do something that is going to be, probably bigger than I would have done this year. And we're seeing lots of that happening, so and it's translating into bookings more so than we ever expected. But I think everybody's customer base is different. Like, for example, Richard's, audience is going to be different to a personal travel agent's audience. So I think, what we've done with our survey results is get them, sort of section them down into the individual personal travel agents, so they can understand the trend, but also have their own data, so that they can manage their own following and their own offers at that granular level as well. But some really encouraging results. So
yeah, and that is interesting, isn't it? If people have been in lockdown, that the idea that actually they're like, right, I'm now going to go on the blowout holiday, which is slightly different to what Richard was saying about.
Sheena is absolutely right. I know, friends of ours who've stood there, and they've got a map of the world and they've thrown a dart on it and they've said, right, that's where we're going to go. And typically, we don't often see bookings because we send traffic to our partners and then they make the booking. But certain commercials that we're working on just now means that we see the physical bookings for the first time. And I would always say that Icelolly was a kind of true, kind of traditional bucket and spade family stroke young couples holiday. But, we worked with a partner that we did some deals with last Sunday, and they've got about 8 inquiries over the last few days for Australia, America, Thailand, like really high-end, long-haul holidays. And I would probably never have said that was an Icelolly typical customer. But I think Sheena's absolutely right, as people are looking at it and going, God, I've been trapped in my house now for best part of 2.5, getting on towards 3 months. Let's just go and enjoy life, and let's go and just book an amazing holiday, something to look forward to.
Yeah, and actually your research, Richard, didn't show it was all short haul. You had Florida looking up, Caribbean.
Yeah.
So
Caribbean.
So long haul wise, is it more people traveling west really than east?
Yeah.
Is that more popular?
Yeah, definitely west. Would be where they're going, and it's encouraging to see, and it's generally places that are out of the new. Obviously Florida's the a slight different point on that. But everyone wants to go to Florida, but certainly some of the areas around the Caribbean and things are the ones that people seem to be quite attracted. And there's some good prices out there. That's it. Even in 2021, we're seeing good prices. So I mean, I don't like when I see newspapers saying if you're prepared to take a gamble, there's some amazing 2020 holidays. It's a horrible term to use, and it's not something that we should be associating ourselves with as an industry. You should never ask a customer to take a gamble. And I think that's one of the things that we've seen. We've changed the way that we do a lot of our communications. So generally there'll be, a list of offers which will be price driven. It'll be, a nice image saying Tenerife or Mallorca or Greece or Turkey. But, some of the emails that have had the greatest engagement will be from, a very personal kind of advice-driven email, which will be saying, it's strange times, but EasyJet have just put their flights on sale. This is what's happening. You can't go to France just now, even though you might read some headlines saying you can. They don't want tourists in. You can't travel there just now. But we're seeing people booking in these, and that's actually that sort of tone of advice stroke, being, I guess, your trusted friend, is something that, we'll position. And actually, that's the sort of thing we'll carry through once you get through this, because I think
I was going to ask that. Do you think, I was going to say, is that a short-term thing that's right for now? Or do you see yourself, having that approach long-term, because you think it will obviously work into the future?
Yeah, definitely. And I think, when obviously the first few weeks as to the speed through which this happened was quite shocking. I mean, I remember speaking to our investors, I think on the Wednesday, and we said, yeah, actually, we've got good foundations. We had a great year last year, good so far. Travel industry is well used to getting through this. We've been here hundreds of times. And I remember that sort of Friday, Saturday, when that, obviously the Tenerife hotel happened, and then you could see partners withdrawing resorts, withdrawing destinations. And, I remember being in the car, because we weren't in the office at that time, and I was picking up one of my kids, and Stu Barrett was on the phone, and he was saying, on the beach have just pulled everything. Love Holidays have pulled everything. It's just like the whole business just came to a standstill. And so what we had to then do was really kind of recalibrate, look at the team that we need. So we've still got, a reasonable sized team who are working there. And our whole plan is to make things better for when it recovers. And UK is a key project. That was always one that we wanted to do at some point, and we'd sort of dipped our toe. But now, the development team are working on that just now. But then just the whole tone of the kind of marketing that we've done, the content, the type of emails, the type of communications, the way that we're constructing our website, is all foundation work, but equally trying stuff and making things better so that when demand does come back, we're just in that much stronger position than we would have been before. So yeah, I mean, the team have done an amazing job. We didn't call them the non-furlough team or the furlough team. We called it Team Hawaii because we started off saying we want to put coals in the fire, keep the brand alive. Then we said, right, we want it to turn into a volcano. And then we said, what's a great destination? Hawaii. So we called the team who are working there Team Hawaii, just because we felt it was a lot more positive, and it was about doing good stuff now to benefit us in the future. So yeah, I think all of those things you test, you just want it to continue to carry forward.
Yeah, I mean, lots of people have said the ways that we've had to adapt and to work differently, actually might very well be good, practices going forward. Just before I move on to Sheena, I just want to ask about cruise, because that was something you put a big focus on recently, Richard. And, I think people have been very worried about cruise because it was clearly, in the spotlight right at the start of this whole crisis. So I spoke to an agent yesterday who said of his 2021 bookings, cruise was the big seller. And he said, I was wrong. I thought it would be, first in, last out, really hit by this whole issue. And he was surprised. And he said it wasn't just price driven. People were just booking cruise, fly cruise, ex-UK, anything. So are you seeing that coming back?
Yeah, I mean, I think with cruise is, I mean, the cruise lines, for whatever reason, always come in for quite a hard time. From any kind of news, be it obviously the mainstream kind of news. It was kind of seen to be at the kind of epicenter of the whole COVID stuff when it first happened. But But, equally, the cruise industry is incredibly resilient. It's got incredibly loyal customers. I think in terms of the government guidance and reassurance as to what they will do to make those safe and clean and quite trusting for people to go on, they will do it probably better than anybody else. You can guarantee with brands like Royal Caribbean and Carnival behind an MSC, the size of those organizations, that they'll make absolutely sure, especially many of them being American companies, will be absolutely tip top. Be coming out of Southampton with, talking about 40% capacity, they'll probably find that they'll get a new customer base who just want to get away and actually feel more comfortable doing that than going through an airport. I think cruise industry, as they've shown time and time again, will recover a lot faster than people think, and people's memories are quite short. That's the thing.
Lots of people have said that. Yeah, well, let's hope so.
I hope, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Sheena, I just wanted to ask you, I mean, Richard was talking about his how he's sort of operated his teams and things, but obviously some people would say that home workers were already used to working from home. That was one thing they didn't have to adapt to. But clearly, they've still been, in difficult times with income very limited, etc. But how have your home workers coped? And I did speak to one home worker earlier this week who was saying, actually, it's been quite good. There has been opportunity because all the other travel agencies have been closed. And of course, now we've got this date for, non-essential retail reopening on June the 15th. Does that mean that sort of edge or that advantage that home workers have had might now, might go back to normal if the shops or, the agencies will reopen?
Yeah, I mean, you can't get away from the fact that for a self-employed, personal travel agent, all the home workers out there, it's been incredibly tough,
Yeah.
And, they're unique in the sense that, they are not only working for nothing, their instinct, their drive is not to, they won't down tools, shut shop. They will help their customers and care for their customers because it's all about those relationships. And, certainly our guys have done an amazing job at that. But I suppose that, they do already work from home. We went through a lot of our team do work from home, but we have a central team who do all the administration, customer care, things like that. We got everybody working from home fairly quickly. We took the decision early on not to furlough our marketing and social media manager, Kiri, who's very talented, and that's turned out to be a really good decision. She drove the survey and has sort of translated that into our approach to supporting them with their marketing since then. We were keen, they had money going out on this level. We were keen to help them support it and balance it out by being able to, in best place to really, to rebook those holidays. But then secondly, to supplement that with new bookings. And thankfully that has worked, that approach has worked well. And for the last 5 weeks in our business, we've done more new bookings than rebooks.
Wow.
It tipped 5 weeks ago and it stayed that way. And I suppose to answer your question about, the opportunity at the moment, it is absolutely there. And our social media sales, for example, last week accounted for 50% of all of our new bookings. And now that is normally around about the 20% mark. But you can see that customers are at home, they're looking for inspiration, they're on social media and they are responding, but again, we've also changed we've sort of adapted the way that we support them and, into a more subtle approach. For example, you'll have something about guess the destination with 4 pictures, and then you'll maybe follow it up with an offer a couple of days later, and you see good results out of that. And it's all that people are there on social media dreaming, and they want to be thinking about what they're going to be doing when all this is over. And I think, yeah, you're right. If you're a personal travel agent, it's business as usual, as in you're at home and you're operating as you would the hours you would do normally. Yes, you've got a huge challenge dealing with your customers that you've got to take care of, but a lot of them are managing to balance that with new bookings and finding new customers as a result of it as well.
All right. Well, that sounds positive from both of you. I mean, both from the research. Look, you're even punching the air. I mean, my goodness, I did not expect this a few weeks ago.
No.
Well, listen, we're delighted that things are starting to pick up for both your businesses. We wish you all the best luck in the world, and we'll get you on again maybe in a few weeks' time and see how things have changed. Because as you say, changing all the time, literally by the day.
Quarantine's been lifted.
Well, we've got stories today with lots of people calling for that. So, yeah, I think someone said as soon as they knock that stupid idea on the head, the better. So we'll see. All right. But thank you very much for your time. So to Richard Singer from Ice Lolly and to Sheena Whittle from Personal Travel Agents at Mid Counties, thank you very much indeed.